In South Africa, culture is sacred. It is invoked to explain who we are, where we come from, and what we must protect. Culture is often described as something inherited, unchosen, unquestionable, and permanent. But culture is also power, and power always has a body. In many African societies, that body is female. This documentary does not ask whether South African cultural practices are authentic. It asks something far more difficult. Who benefits from them? Who is burdened by them? And who is forbidden from questioning them? Across multiple South African traditions, women's bodies are not merely participants in culture. They are its primary symbol. The female body becomes the canvas upon which values such as purity, respect, discipline, and continuity are written. Whether through dress, movement, posture, or exposure, women are expected to perform culture, often physically, publicly, and silently. One of the most contested expressions of this is the practice of young women appearing topless during cultural ceremonies. Defenders argue that breasts are not sexual in African culture, that colonial morality imposed shame where none existed before. And this argument holds historical truth, but history alone does not answer the present. Because today these ceremonies take place in a modern patriarchal society where women's bodies are constantly surveilled, judged, sexualized, and regulated, both by men and by institutions. In this context, insisting that public nudity is not sexual does not remove power from the equation. The critical question is not what breasts mean culturally, but who decides what they mean. When women do not control the narrative, interpretation becomes domination. Supporters of these traditions often respond with one word: choice. They argue that women voluntarily participate, that no one is forced, and that participation reflects pride rather than coercion. But feminist theory reminds us that choice does not exist in a vacuum. What does choice mean in a society where refusing a cultural practice can lead to shame, exclusion, or accusations of being un-African? What does consent mean when a young girl's elders, family, and entire community expect compliance? True choice requires the freedom to say no without punishment. When participation is socially mandatory but framed as voluntary, culture becomes coercion disguised as tradition.
What we're trying to do is tell these people that we love our culture, that we want to embrace and use our bodies to perform and to celebrate our culture, and we will not allow them to impose their standards on us. For many generations and many centuries, they've been using systems like apartheid to oppress us, telling us how to dress, how to look, and where to live. And now apartheid legally has been abolished, but within their systems, they're still practicing policies of apartheid, which is why they think they can control how you represent yourselves and how you represent your culture. So it's important that we stand up to them and we say, you've had your time. We let you do what you do, but now we're going to stand up for what is ours. We're going to stand up for what we believe in, and we're going to be celebrating our cultures the way our ancestors have been doing it for centuries and centuries. So it is good for you to be proud and not let them intimidate you. And how do you not let them intimidate you? By standing united as a unit, by gathering together in places like this and talking and discussing this and sharing your points of view and approaching them and telling them, no, we will not conform to what you want us to. We are who we are. We are African. This is us, And let's not, I don't want us to even say we are Zulu or we are this. We should just say we are African. Because by immediately saying we are Zulu, we ourselves are dividing ourselves and we are doing their job already. But when we unite and say we are African, then we show them that we are a force to be reckoned with. Because you know how there's a saying that when you have one stick, it's easy to break. But when you have a bunch of sticks, you cannot break them. And that's how we must be. We must be strong as a unit and stand up for the same thing. There must not be any loopholes. There must not be any weak points.
Virginity testing remains one of the most controversial practices defended in the name of culture. It is often justified as a tool for moral guidance, disease prevention, and social discipline. But its structure reveals something deeper. Virginity testing applies almost exclusively to girls. It examines, classifies, and publicly acknowledges their sexual status. There is no equivalent system for boys. This asymmetry exposes the real function of the practice, the regulation of female sexuality, not communal morality. From a feminist perspective, virginity becomes a form of social currency, a woman's worth measured not by her intellect, autonomy, or contribution, but by what has not happened to her body. The practice communicates a powerful message. Your body does not belong to you alone. It belongs to culture, family, lineage, and male expectation. Umhlanga, commonly referred to in English as the reed dance, is one of the most visible and defended cultural ceremonies in southern Africa. Thousands of young women gather, traditionally unmarried and often topless, dancing before elders and the king. The ceremony is framed as a celebration of chastity, unity, and cultural continuity. Supporters describe Umhlanga as empowering, a space of sisterhood, discipline, and pride. But visibility invites scrutiny. Why is female purity performed publicly? Why is virginity celebrated through physical display rather than personal autonomy? Why does the ritual culminate in presentation before male authority? From a critical lens, Umhlanga functions not only as celebration but as spectacle. A national performance of femininity, where women's bodies symbolize the moral health of the nation, while men remain spectators, arbiters, and beneficiaries. The ceremony does not simply preserve culture, it reproduces hierarchy. Critics of these practices are often dismissed as westernized, colonized, or anti-African. Feminism is framed as foreign, incompatible with African identity, but this framing ignores history. African women have always resisted. They have always questioned power. They have always negotiated tradition. Feminism in this context is not about rejecting culture. It is about interrogating how culture is used. Who speaks for culture? Who interprets it? And who is told to be silent in its name? When culture consistently demands sacrifice from women, but reverence for men, it stops being heritage and becomes governance. Culture evolves or it dies. At various points in history, culture defended practices that are now widely condemned. Child marriage, exclusion of women from leadership, denial of consent within marriage. These practices were not abandoned because culture was destroyed, but because society re-examined them. The same question must be asked today. Is culture serving the people or preserving power? Culture is not a museum artifact. It is not frozen in time. It lives through people, and people can suffer under it. When young women are told that dignity requires exposure, that respect requires silence, and that belonging requires obedience, we must ask, who is culture really protecting? If tradition demands that women carry morality on their bodies, while men carry authority in their hands, then culture has chosen sides. Questioning culture is not betrayal, it is responsibility. Because a culture that cannot be questioned is not culture. It is control, and a tradition that survives only by silencing women is not heritage. It is fear. The future of African culture does not lie in defending every practice inherited from the past. It lies in deciding, consciously and courageously, which values deserve to be carried forward and which ones should be left behind. And perhaps the most radical cultural act of all is to allow women not just to dance for the nation, but to speak to it.